Welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your host, Buddy Sotello Esquire, and Dr. Mike Lano, our masked COVID ID guest for co-host for tonight.
I co-host every week. I'm with you every week.
That's true.
Let me say why I'm wearing the mask, just very briefly. My mom passed away.
Our condolences.
With a week, but now, luckily I have, a little bit of time when I'm not in a family meeting, so I may have to bail at some point in the show at the halfway mark. But I'm with people not everybody, I'm not fully sure everybody's vaccinated and stuff where I am here. So just tell people and close friends, family, you love them. Don't wait. I didn't, but I'm just saying, I wish I could have said a lot more. Thankfully, it wasn't COVID or anything like that. I do want to say the guest I brought on last week, I tried to be open-minded about everyone. So very brief here on Rock Riddle. I've known him, again, since like 1974 and constantly ever. So I never care about people's beliefs and stuff. I do and I don't. I don't let that affect a friendship, and I normally don't ever talk about that stuff with friends, so I don't have to get upset. But here's the thing. With Cauliflower Alley starting today, Sunday the 12th, is it, of September, and being 3 to 4 days, and people packed in an antiquated old hotel miles from the casino, miles from the strip and all the fun, so we've always felt like, being at that old antiquated hotel without any proper ventilation, it's ancient. You smell like smoke, even, when you're in your room, a non-smoking room, it just goes through all of the system. And so a bunch of people did not want to go, since it's been continually postponed every couple of months from April of last year, 2020, because they didn't want to, catch it. And now we've got the Delta and Mu variants up, hospital beds, particularly in Nevada, completely packed. The governor of Nevada said the entire state, if you're indoors, no matter what you're doing, except eating and drinking briefly, you got to be masked. So a lot of people have continually asked Cauliflower Alley for their money back, their refund of their, it's almost like, I think it's $165 for the whole weekend, including your annual $25 Cauliflower Alley renewal dues. And they've asked for that and have not been given their refunds back. So on one hand, you've got a president who's claiming this event is going to be a sellout, but he's counting, we believe, non-refunded full things. It should have been refunded a year and a half ago. So these people are upset. So many people aren't coming. At least one honoree who I know, and the people that are going to present his award, not going because, he's over 65 as I am. They don't want to potentially get sick. So you have that. And then on the whole other end, so those are COVID believers, and they don't have a problem with having to wear a mask, at least those that are going. Actually, there's a whole slew of people that ain't coming. Myself.
Yeah, the real COVID believers just won't go because,
right.
Subjecting yourself to a plane flight, taxi, driving, or Uber, driving in an Uber with somebody you don't know if is vaccinated or not. There's all those problems there.
We don't want to alienate viewers that.
Oh, I don't mind.
Well,
I don't mind. If you don't believe in vaccines and you don't think that you want to have anything to do with that, go ahead. Right. I don't mind if you unsubscribe because I've already been vaccinated. You've been vaccinated.
I've been double vaccinated, but there are now the scary breakthrough cases.
But fine, I don't want those people listening to the show anyway. To be honest with you, go. No, seriously, I'm not offended by it. And then
that's the problem is people are not getting it and they think it's taking their personal liberties and
it's not.
You can have that argument, but.
You can't.
The main point is protecting others. You primarily aren't wearing a mask.
To protect yourself, it's to make sure you don't spit on other people and spread it.
Right, because it's aerosol based. However,
nobody knows that they're asymptomatic.
We're going to confuse people. So we have those people that aren't coming out of an abundance of safety and precaution to themselves and others. They just don't think it's right. They want their money back too. They're really upset about that they've been given all these excuses like, oh, let us keep it. We'll apply it to the next convention, the reunion you come to. Others have said that they've been told, oh, you could just donate it to us. Think of
it's because the money's already been spent, unfortunately.
So
they know how these guys are.
Number two, I think I've said on this program, as many have, that our entire board, and these are people, many who'd been on the board, well beyond 15 years, et cetera. I was on the board through the 90s and got off and just said, hey, let me go back to just being the club photographer which I've done anyway continuously since 1987. So I'm missing my first CAC since 1987 when we did it in Los Angeles, and it was wonderful there. But, okay, so now Rock Riddle, and I'm not saying anything negative about him because he has his belief system. He and many others, but he in particular, and he's been coming, for decades. He posted that he did, but he had anything I left out, that he refuses to be muzzled. I don't think he's aware that the Nevada state governor and council and all that put down this mandate of no mask or being masked anywhere you are indoors, no exceptions. And they also strongly, recommend without mandating that you be masked outdoors too, because those are super spreader potential events. So Cauliflower Alley. So anyway, so you're indoors 3 to 4 days. There's Monday and Tuesday night shows that are packed with people. There's the vendor area that's a tiny room that everybody packs all day long. There's the daytime seminars. We have far fewer, only 4 this year. And there's a cribbage tournament, bowling tournament, things like that. And then the 2 Tuesday and Wednesday night banquets in the large room where they have the wrestling on Monday night, possibly Sunday nights, tonight's wrestling too, that Billy Blade puts on that Russ and I know. So Rock Riddle posts that he's not going to be muzzled, and he's really upset about that if you're from that standpoint, which, hey, he's entitled to his opinion. And he posted that he is not going to go and not stay at the hotel, not go to CAC at all, but I think he's stuck with a plane flight, non-refundable one. And so he's going to have his own reunion at the hotel that he's at, and people, are urged to go there. So anybody that doesn't want to wear a mask or be checked to be vaccinated or test negative each day of CAC, which has already started today, they can go to his hotel and have a mock Cauliflower Alley reunion there. So you're hit on both sides of the equation. The people that vaccinated, don't want to get sick, aren't even coming, or pissed that they haven't gotten their refunds over a year and a half. It was bumped from April to September 2020 to April of this year, now September 2021. And on the other end, you get people that refuse to wear a mask, although if they hold mock artificial CACs at another hotel entirely and don't go to, they're going to see they got to wear masks wherever they are. So this sounds like a mess. There are honorees, as I said, not coming, at least one I'm very close to in particular, having worked with him in the Los Angeles wrestling office in the 70s and beyond. Superb guy. And he and his presenters kept asking Cauliflower Alley, hey, you should just mail him his award, maybe give it to him virtually online. So,
yeah, I mean, right now, virtual awards make more sense. There's nothing to be gained by risking your health and safety by traveling, by then meeting with other people that you don't know if they have been tested or vaccinated. And it's a huge gamble for what?
Well, because even people like you and I that have been fully vaccinated, I was fully vaccinated last March, we can still be carriers and we can still get these breakthrough infections. So that's nuts. The
vaccination doesn't make you infection proof. It just means
at best. Now I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I don't get the 90% from the vaccination that you get or others that don't have an autoimmune disease get. I'm far lower. I'm lucky if I get 60% or 57% protection. If I didn't have rheumatoid, I could at best get 90% protection from Pfizer. So I can't wait for my booster. I'm sure you.
Right. And I said the same thing to somebody yesterday who was a client of mine that I've known for a long time. I've known for about 15 years. And he wasn't taking the vaccine, but he is quarantined. So he's choosing to, quarantine himself rather than get the vaccine. And I said, I said that the virus doesn't care about your opinion. And that's the whole thing is whether you.
Like the virus is constantly morphing and
yes
to infect. So now we not only have the worst, most contagious, that is COVID Delta, but also something called COVID Mu and COVID Lambda that are morphing, changing to infect more people. We've got hospitals at the brink in 9 states now, including Nevada. Children, we had a couple where I am in Southern California that have died at age 2 from COVID. Kids, deaths and hospitalizations make up 1/4. I don't want to stay on this topic, but what I want to say is in March of last year, I asked our president, who was never elected, he just seized power, according to Dean Silverstone, who was the treasurer, who also said we had hundreds of thousands of dollars, yet why are we only giving out a max of about 15 grand or less per year to those in need, which is, somebody should be investigating that. But I said, why don't we do this virtually? I said that from about March 12th on of last year. Let's do this awards thing virtually. We can ask people to pay, have it as a pay for stream event, like a pay-per-view, like Fight Network or something like that. And I was continually blown off. And then I brought the head guys from COVID Con, the podcast marathon, those talented guys, and introduced them to our current
Kenny Casanova and company. Yes.
And so we ended up doing what they called a Con. I was part of it, and it raised money for CAC, and it was exactly what I had said, but like 5 months later, after I first said it, March 14th or so of 2020. So, whatever. I hope no one gets sick in Vegas. I want to mention, changing gears, that Conor McGregor with that pink suit presented Artist of the Year at the MTV VMAs tonight. It was a big deal. I'll give a spoiler. He awarded it to Justin Bieber. So that's a big deal. He said something, really haughty, because he does have that attitude, that wrestling swagger. He said, New York is back and so is the Mac, meaning Conor McGregor. I also want to add to, we lost, and we did a nice tribute. We'll continue to salute Shannon, as you know, Spruill. Her wrestling name, starting in WCW, TNA, and Ring of Honor, etc. The WrestleCons from High Spots was Daphne. You know her as Daphne. We also lost a longtime CACer, but this guy was the ultimate wrestler. He worked in every territory, including Tri-WF in the 70s and 80s. Bill White just passed, I believe, this morning. And that's kind of a tragedy, because this guy was such a great guy. He was a champion cribbage player at Cauliflower Alley, but well beyond Cauliflower Alley, this guy was a big deal. All right, some other news to throw out there. We're going to see the new NXT. Now, Samoa Joe just had to relinquish a couple hours ago his NXT championship. They're saying it was for some undisclosed accident or injury. And
the WWE is getting rid of Samoa Joe, I thought.
Well, we don't know that, but I mean, they were going to, I thought he was actually released, and then he came back to NXT because he wanted to wrestle. But if this is machinations, because almost everybody seems to want to bolt, that also brings us the current story from yesterday. Kevin Steen, as you know, in WWE is Kevin Owens, but Kevin Steen, who I shot his rookie career, I shot him in Canada, and then he came to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. He was in Ring of Honor.
And really talented. I mean, really a guy that I think for the WWE, they were thinking that he was going to be the future of the franchise, and they just botched it. I mean, they botched his...
They put him over. He's been in that upper to secondary, not at the Roman Reigns level, but he had that series with Roman Reigns earlier this year. But the problem is he posted, I guess on his site or Twitter, that something symbolic of his time in Ring of Honor with his buddies, the Young Bucks, and I forget who else was part of that, and particularly the Young Bucks, though, because every time I saw him, actually this was in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, it might have also been when they were together in Ring of Honor later, but it started with the Young Bucks in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla out of Los Angeles, and then he had to take that down, but it was alluding to his contract's expiring in January. Now, if this guy bolts to AEW, then I would expect Sami Zayn the former El Generico to go to AEW, and
the WWE hasn't used Kevin Steen in a long time. So why wouldn't you think they're going to get rid of him in January? They're getting rid of all those, people they figure are, not complete yes men of Vince or women.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Braun Strowman thing and the Bray Wyatt was really kind of disturbing. I'm having to provide my photos of Braun Strowman for some fan fest, but this poor guy's got to do signings and stuff now. Incredibly talented for a huge guy. The creative could have done a lot more with him, and now you see Alexa Bliss carrying on with his whole gimmick, but it's not at the level he was doing it at, which was dangerous and scary. And hers, it's more just quirky with that doll that everybody hates. And people are talking, and the rumor mill is that Ric Flair himself may sign with AEW soon. And where does this leave his daughter, who allegedly is disgruntled now after she had to work the Mandy whatever pregnancy angle, which was the shits? She's now having to work with Alexa Bliss doing that character instead of some of the more talented female wrestlers there. It made no sense when they brought Becky Lynch back because she had to relinquish her Raw title, yet she comes back to SmackDown and acts like that was the title she lost, which was not. It insults your intelligence. And that's the problem with WWE all these decades, is misjudging their audience's intelligence. And then
I agree with that, and their patience. They misjudge their audience's patience. There's only so many commercials you can sit through. There's only so many reruns of the match they just saw and highlights of the match that they just saw that they're willing to put up with. And I did watch last week's AEW program. I got to admit, I wasn't overly knocked out by it. I wasn't all that. I haven't watched an AEW show in a while.
The 2-hour Wednesday or the 1-hour Friday Rampage?
1 hour Friday Rampage.
It was just because they were in that town. The Wednesday show is awesome. It's the best show on TV now that NXT is falling apart. We're going to see the new NXT this.
That's basically AEW is going to be NXT, version 2. And Vince, I think, is going to wind up turning the NXT that he has into the WBF, the World Bodybuilding Federation.
It's gonna go back. It was weird that it started just as a developmental, from Deep South Wrestling with the late great Jody Hamilton, the Assassin #1 we saluted on this very program. And then Triple H got this idea to start, I wouldn't say stealing, but lifting these stars like Shinsuke Nakamura, a ton from Impact and TNA, really. If you look, the whole locker room is full of TNA Impact guys, whether it's Drake as LA Knight or Dexter Lumis. There are many, many, many others. Samoa Joe that's where he came from, was TNA. And but the stealing,
we know where he really came from. Universal Pro Wrestling down in LA.
Well, yes, you're right. That was Rick Bassman's group, who I was close with and worked as his photographer, particularly
when he many a Denny's meal with Samoa Joe and Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels. It was really Christopher Daniels was really that nexus.
I got a question for you. Who was Samoa Joe's tag partner in that group that also came and tagged with him in APW on the joint shows?
Frankie Kazarian.
Nope.
Frankie Kazarian.
Nope. Keiji Sakota.
Oh, okay. Well, I know Frankie tagged with him.
Frankie didn't always tag with, nor did Chris Daniels. Now, Chris Daniels was actually, as you weren't coming, you might have been in the seats at the garage, but Chris Daniels was coming up, starting around '97 to APW, to the garage.
Yeah, that was just before I joined up. But
he was teaming with a kid from the UPW, the Rick Bassman group down there, and actually Pro Wrestling Guerrilla with Samoa Joe was home base before UPW started. But Suicide Kid was who Chris Daniels would come up with, and that's when he had full hair or jet black hair, full head
before the bald.
And the bald came much later, for quite a few years in UPW.
Right.
in King of the Indies, he had bleach blonde hair when he was.
I remember that.
We should do a show. We should recounting King of the Indies. If you look at all the talent from AJ Styles,
it's a lot.
Last two guys, Low Key and American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, to Samoa Joe, to Frankie Kazarian, to Spanky, Adam,
and Mark Smith. Adam, our pal Mark.
Mark had that match with who was the match with where he feigned that injury? And
Donovan. So because they were so mad at Roland that they wanted to because Modest.
They were mad that he was hiring his head instructor Bryan Danielson.
Right, which you look back on that and you go, why was that a problem? But at the time,
how long did Bryan Danielson stay as trainer? Did he even stay that long? It was
about a year. Maybe about 10 months to a year. But there were so many guys that wanted Donovan to be handed the head trainer job. And so when Donovan Morgan didn't get the head trainer job, and it was going to basically an outsider in Bryan Danielson, again, we look back on history and we go, maybe that...
He never worked there before King of the Indies.
No, he hadn't. We had never met him before that. Roland fell in love with him as American Dragon.
But
I thought he had no personality. Believe it or not, I thought his big problem was he wasn't interesting enough. And so,
well, he delivered in the ring. There was no question, but there was no question in my mind that Mike Modest, Donovan Morgan, Frank Murdoch, and Bison Mark Smith all deserved to be working with Vinny Massaro, who's already a co-trainer for the boot camp, APW boot camp. But that's a whole story we should do. The amazing amount of talent. Moondog Ed Moretti came down for the 2 days of it.
Ballards and cheerleader Melissa.
I think you've heard me say a bunch of times, Roland asked me to get some legends there. And I got them all. I brought in my co-host at the time of my long-running TV show, Canvas Cavity, Ann Calvello, who was like the fabulous Moolah of Derby. She skated as a heel for 7 decades in roller derby. I brought in guys that lived miles from me, Pepper Gomez and Kenji Shibuya. I had Alan Bolte come. He was not the announcer of record at that particular time, but he came in. I had Bockwinkel fly in. The only guy I didn't get was Bobby Heenan. We had a plane ticket for him, and he was ill, and his wife Cindy didn't let him go. But I also got in guys who drove all the way up hours, and that would be Fritz von Goring and the original Paul Diamond. And I think that was all we had. I didn't get Woody there, although he told me he was going to come. He didn't show. But, Pepper Gomez, Kenji Shibuya from the Roy Shire era, it was pretty damn impressive. They were there, and I took shots of Bockwinkel sitting there putting American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, and AJ Styles on either side of him to the moon. He was so impressed with them.
Well, that was the second one. With the first King of the Indies went better.
Well, that was you're talking the first night of the 2 nights. The second,
right.
You like the first night better than the second?
No. We did a King of the Indies in 2000, and that went over well. And then we had King of the Indies in 2001. So you're thinking of King of the Indies too?
I'm thinking of 2001, which is the big deal with all.
Right. The 2001 one was where the split happened between APW and Pro Wrestling Iron.
That was the 2001 one where they all left. And then we had subsequent ones whereafter. I don't want to leave off a name. A dear friend of mine, Scoot Andrews, who was the Black Nature Boy. He was also part of that.
He was great. I worked a couple shows with him as well, including
let's hold that another show because I think we should get some APW talent. Even if I get somebody I had on the old show. I must have brought Vinny Massaro about 5-6 times to Legends Radio with Evan. Vinny is adept at talking about that.
But Vinny is not invited on this show. Me and Vinny have worked enough shows together, and I'm pretty much done working with Vinny. So
we'll get somebody, even if it's just you and I, but we'll get somebody from that era. I would like to get a hold of. I know
Modest would be great. Mike Modest would be.
I would still like to get guys that are no one talks to them. Big Mike Diamond. Are they anybody talking about Max Justice?
Max Justice. I'd love to get him on the show. He's a great guy.
Who built the rings?
if we could get Max Marquez, the ref.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. And the guy that was replaced him as our head ref at APW, and then he went
Tom Castor.
Tom Castor, he's injured now, but he was hired by WWE.
I've asked him. They said the WWE says he can't do any independent podcasts. That's the love of the WWE. But eventually they'll listen.
He was a very talented ref. He was a good guy. But let's shoot for Max Marquez, who was really for many, many years, and he participated in a lot of great angles, and it was a terrific guy. We had a lot of fun with him.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
Speaking of our APW guys, and I think he was in the first or second boot camp, was Super Diablo, who you sent me that, was it SF Weekly that did that big piece on him?
No, not Super Diablo. That's the Chicano Flame, who I'm hoping to have on as our guest next week, because it looks like we are going to be in the lurch with my friend Ryan Bowman, as they say in the wrestling business.
Yeah, last week he was stuck watching the 4-hour AEW.
As they say in the wrestling business, cards subject to change. So, as I said, those are the magic words in pro wrestling.
Chicano Flame, I used to give him shit because he wore not a professional, but like Olvera Street purchase Mil Mosquera's mask for many years when he started. I go, man, I know Mil well, and I will always protect you because I love Chicano Flame. Nice guy. And I go, but if he ever sees you wearing that Mosquera's mask wrestling, he might have a shit fit on you.
Yeah, but hey, everybody knows the Flame. He's worked probably every.
Well, tell the people he's a firefighter. I didn't even know that. He's never told me that.
Well, we'll get into that next week when we have him on as a guest. But unfortunately, our guest this week looks like he's gonna, as I said,
for him because I'm gonna have to go in about 5 minutes, Russ.
Yeah, no, we might just have a short show this week, and hey, you folks out there in podcast land, you get what you pay for with the show. So
we don't want to alienate people, but
it's a free show, so you only get half an hour this week. I could have had no show at all, so at least you're gonna get half an hour.
I want to give my email out, WREALANO@AOL.com. It's Real Lano with a W in front. And let us know what you would like to hear. Do you want us to talk about history, about West Coast promotions? Because there was Saturday night an exciting show. That group the guy that was supposed to contact me back was the guy doing the what is his name now? Levi Shapiro.
Oh yeah, we could get him on the show.
The promoter said, "Sure, I'd be happy to promote it. Here's our guy Levi, who's doing all the media for us."
I know him.
It's Minoru Suzuki and the great talent from AEW. That was the main event. That's the upcoming show. But they had a show, I guess, in South San Francisco Saturday with Alex Hammerstone, who's a big deal in MLW. He comes out of Vegas. And Chris Bay from Vegas, who's part of, he was part of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. But, of course, you see him every week on Impact. And he's supposedly part of the Americanized Bullet Club now with Switchblade for however long those tapings continue. They might be all over with Switchblade on there, but from New Japan. So it was a huge show. It looked, Major League. There were some APW guys on it. There was also Jacob Fatu, the son of Sam Fatu, Tonga Kid. He was on it, and he's MLW champion. So it's nice to see when guys like that come back. When APW promotes.
Do you know how the show did? Do you have any idea how it drew?
They've been drawing well and selling out for the few shows they've done after COVID hit this year and prior to that. So the group is like 3 years old. I was not aware of them, which is kind of, I feel ashamed that I didn't know about them. But I would give anything to see that Minoru Suzuki match. Terrific stuff.
Well, we'd love to have them on the show. So if anyone knows how to get a hold of them or how to get them to be on our show, we'd interview them.
You did not watch AEW on Wednesday with Minoru Suzuki against Jon Moxley?
No, I saw Friday's show.
You got to watch the Wednesday show. Just DVR it.
Look, the Giants, have taken up all my free time.
Well, the Giants are they still in first place?
Yeah, they're still in first place.
Best record in baseball?
Best record in baseball. So it's hard to turn away from that. Sorry, AEW, And you have that to compete against. And now that football is started back up, I'm going to tell you,
the Niners are doing very well.
They just won today, but I'm telling you that the wrestling is going to be very challenged now that regular sports are back.
Yeah, Russ, you know I shot every victory parade for the 49ers as press. I shot every Warriors one, including their very last one. That was in Oakland. And then, of
hopefully
course,
there'll be another one this year.
All three Giants victory parades started in North Beach and then went to...
Hopefully there'll be another one this year.
And if you look at the tape of the very first one, I'm right 5 inches, 6 inches from Tony Bennett singing at City Hall at the very end to wrap it up. You know, I left my heart in San Francisco. I am so grateful. One of the greatest moments in my life. And I've done a lot of pretty cool things, but being that close to Tony Bennett singing a cappella, you know, for reals, not recording or anything, the great Tony Bennett, who's an institution, even though he's, I think, born and raised in New York, he's San Francisco's own. They have a statue of him at the Fairmont Hotel up on Nob Hill. And nobody personifies San Francisco more than Tony Bennett, who's...
No, they play I Left My Heart in San Francisco after every single Giants game. When you leave the park.
I still have, from going to Candlestick for all those Niner games, my Vine Vide Vice. I came, I saw, I survived buttons from the
Craw to Candlestick.
It was so cold there when the wind would blow from all the that I shot. It was cold, but it was wonderful. I
spent a lot of time there too. My uncle had season tickets, so I went to a fair number of both Giants and 49er games, especially in the early days of Montana, before, getting tickets were near impossible. I went to a lot of early 49er games and early Montana games.
It was interesting, all the changes with the Giants, the Roger Craig managerial years. Was it Manny Alou who was the captain? And
Felipe Alou.
The guy that we had, though, for all those 3 world championships, I think he was the greatest coach. And that's saying something.
Bruce Bochy.
Oh, man, Bruce, what a guy.
Hey, this guy, Gabe Kapler, knows what he's doing, too. He's got this team turned around and playing the best baseball I've seen them play since 2012, which, in my humble opinion, is the greatest baseball team to ever set foot on a baseball field, is the 2012 San Francisco Giants.
Catcher there.
Buster Posey.
It's pretty cool. There's still some guys from those championship years. And remember, every other year, was it an even-numbered year?
The even-number years, 10, 12, and 14.
We won every time, and we had so many great characters. Who was that one guy with the mohawk that was crazy the first?
Aubrey Huff?
No, he was great.
Oh, you're talking Brian Wilson.
Yeah,
Brian Wilson, the pitcher.
So colorful. That we had that other pitcher who looked like the kid next door. It was terrific.
Lincecum.
Tim Lincecum. Oh man, those were the.
I love that team. That team's the team that won my heart. The 2012 Giants with Hunter Pence and with Tim Lincecum and Matt Cain and
was the heart and soul of the team. He left, but I think he only lasted 1 or 2 years, and that was it for his career.
Yeah, because he used to throw his entire body into his pitch, and once his body broke down and he got some injuries, he just couldn't get that precision to generate the kind of power pitches that he would, won several Cy Youngs for. But the fact that he got 2 titles with us is a miracle and a payoff for all the hard work that he did before the Giants went to the World Series. He won 2 Cy Youngs before they went to the World Series.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm getting the high sign, so I want to alert everybody. If we haven't turned off people that are of the Trump persuasion, I'm going to say Bill Maher is back every Friday night. John Oliver is back now every Sunday night. And Trevor Noah on The Daily Show on Comedy Central back every weeknight. So that's where you can get your I Hate Trump news from. So I'll be watching all of those shows.
Sure. And I'll be probably getting memes from them on Facebook from my friends.
From Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel, who really slaughter any of that. please make sure you vote. And if you're in California here, vote no, and you don't really have to do anything else. Just vote no, because we don't want to see. It's like the expression, you don't want someone inexperienced getting a major office, like a shyster casino guy becoming president. Well, in this
case, look at what happened with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and how bad he was for this thing.
He couldn't be worse than Larry Elder. Now, Larry Elder is just the guy who is looking at his brand and trying to be.
Arnold did the same thing, and he was terrible, and he stunk, and he.
Yes, but now he speaks out against Trump and for the environment. So he's.
Yeah, but he still was a terrible governor, and he ran this state into the ground. There were furloughs, and we had a deficit, and then Jerry Brown comes in and turns the state around and gives us a surplus.
Jerry, and I'm going to leave the show with that. Jerry Brown was a whiz, a monetary whiz. We ended up with a huge surplus that no one thought he could get us to. Terrific governor. He should have been governor for life, because he kind of was. He was the governor after his dad and Reagan in the 70s. And then he took a hiatus, was mayor of Oakland, I think.
Right.
And then came back and was governor 2 more times. So,
well, you always love to drop names. I can drop a name here, which is that I'm a high school classmate of Gavin Newsom's. So he was in my math class.
If you don't say that, because I'm going to outdo you. We had Judge Newsom, Tommy, his dad, and a young Gavin at my first wife's house for dinner a couple of times. The famous June Lynch. She was mother of a political dynasty. But Quentin Kopp, that one, the more of them. Quentin Kopp came with Judge Newsom, his brother, and Gavin, and this
my college roommate was Brad Kopp. His son. Well, let's just put it this way. He was the worst roommate I ever had. He was awful.
The San Francisco politicians, if you look at Barbara Boxer, if you look at Nancy Pelosi, Feinstein, so many terrific ones. And yeah, there were some characters, Willie Brown, who's entertaining and stuff. I wasn't the biggest Willie Brown fan, but I do remember I was going to my dental office in Union Square, San Francisco, and here he is at Wilkes Bashford's store with a limo. And he was Speaker of the House, and it was like 1:30 in the afternoon. I go, Willie, why aren't you working for the People's Dime? And he said something like, my man, I am working, going in to buy all his Brioni suits, his $5,000 Brioni suits that he would wear a few times, and then at least he would donate them to charity. San Francisco, for poverty people could get a fantastic suit. So we have had some fantastic politicians, pretty much from Northern California. I won't say Southern Cal produced all that many. No one remembers Pete Wilson from San Diego.
I do, and I rue the moment that he became governor.
But we have had some amazing people from the Bay Area. Obviously, Jerry Brown, a Jesuit at where did he go? San Francisco State, and so we've had some really good people. There's a guy that should have possibly been president. He would have gotten our fiscal situation in shape. So with that, Russ, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to do a Kenny Omega and bid everyone a good night and an adieu until next week, when we hopefully will have Chicano Flame.
Yes, well, we're booking Chicano Flame. Looking forward to having him on the show. Thank you for being here, everyone. It's a short show tonight, but we'll see you all next week.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.